I mean, that's an excuse for sure. I mean, I'm not going to use that. I don't think we should. You know, we expect greatness when we step on the field. Now, this is a tough opener for us, travel-wise and schedule-wise, but no excuses. We got to play better. I got to play better. And we'll bounce back next week.
Last night on Monday Night Football, we got our first look at the 2024 New York Jets, and I think there were some positives to take away from the game, but also a good amount of negatives that I do think could impact how good the Jets are this season. I think the biggest thing people were waiting to see was obviously quarterback Aaron Rodgers and how he was going to look in his first action in over a year, coming off of an Achilles injury, being 40 years old, all those elements playing into one. How was Rodgers going to look against the NFC champion last year, who made it to the Super Bowl, was honestly very close to winning that game in the fourth quarter against the Kansas City Chiefs. They held a lead. And my takeaways from the game is it was kind of a mixed bag for Rodgers. I do think we can still see his arm talent. He made a couple of really nice throws. One of them was up the left sideline to Allen Lazard. I mean, you could not have handed him the ball better than Rodgers threw that one. I mean, it was a very, very high level throw. Then his throw of the night was once again vintage Aaron Rodgers, drawing off the defense, getting an offsides penalty, having a free play, and then firing up the seam to Allen Lazard for a touchdown, his first one of the season. There were several other throws where he did show off his arm talent. I mean, he ripped one across the middle of the field to Garrett Wilson, like a 100-mile-per-hour fastball. So I don't think this is going to be one of those situations where it's like Ben Roethlisberger or Peyton Manning, where these guys' arms just fail them. They can't throw the ball 20 yards down the field because of just all the wear and tear that they've built up over the course of their career. We didn't see that with Rodgers. His arm looks fantastic. I mean, really as good as it's been the last several years. The biggest concern and question that I have moving forward is going to be his mobility, because the difference between Rodgers and Phillip Rivers and Ben Roethlisberger and all the other really good quarterbacks in his era was that Rodgers was a bit more of a complete player. He could extend plays, he could get away from the pass rush, run some play action, do some bootlegs, even pick up some first downs with his legs, and I'm not entirely sure if Rodgers still has that in his game. There was only a couple of instances that we saw where the pass rush did get to him and he tried to escape, it just didn't have that same mobility or athleticism to really get away from the pass rush, which we were really used to seeing from him. And I think when you combine his age and then coming off of that Achilles injury, I just don't think that's going to be a major part of his game anymore, and I do think that limits him as a quarterback, and he's not going to be as good as like the MVP Rodgers we saw several years ago. I personally did not think Rodgers would have that same type of mobility after this injury, but I feel like some people did have some hope that maybe that was still going to be a part of his game. But I think it's safe to say that's not really going to be there anymore, and it's not the end of the world, but it does just change the play style of Rodgers, because he's not been a guy that just sits in the pocket and then goes through all of his reads and then fires to the open guy like a Tom Brady or Peyton Manning. Movement was a huge part of Rodgers' game, so I do wonder how this adjustment period is going to go and if Rodgers can really adapt his play style and get the most out of it at age 40. We didn't see a ton of Mike Williams last night as he still tries to come back from his ACL injury, but I was also concerned with the lack of weaponry outside of Breece Hall and Garrett Wilson. I mean, they both got force-fed a lot, and obviously you want to do that with the superstars on your team. But what the 49ers started to do in the second half was put more people in the box, bracket Garrett Wilson, and then that was really when the Jets offense struggled to continue to move the ball. Allen Lazard had a couple of nice plays, but he also had a couple of drops, and I don't think you can expect him to be like a big play threat every single week. The Jets really need to find somebody else on that offense that can be a viable threat, especially down the field, and I do think Mike Williams can be that player, but right now he does not seem 100% healthy. I think he is on a pitch count, and also how long can you really expect him to be durable and be on the field if he does have to have a big role in the offense? I also didn't think there was a ton of creativity and motion in the offense, and that goes back to Nathaniel Hackett, and he's not seen as a super good coordinator, probably one of the bottom 3 offensive minds in the league currently that is calling plays, and the Jets offense just kind of seemed pretty vanilla and really just relying again on Breece Hall and Garrett Wilson. He's going to have to do a better job against some of these elite teams like the 49ers if the Jets really do want to be a serious playoff team this year and, win a couple playoff games like they're kind of having the expectation to do. I did think the revamped offensive line did a fairly good job against the 49ers, who have one of the best pass rushers in the league in Nick Bosa. Leonard Floyd has also proven to be a very viable pass rusher as well. Rodgers was only sacked one time. It's going to be a big key to the Jets season this year, just keeping Rodgers upright and making sure he can avoid some big hits. They couldn't run the ball very well, but against the 49ers, who have a great defensive line and some really good linebackers, it's going to be tough for really any team to run against them. I think the predictability of the offense was a bigger reason why the Jets cannot run the ball versus just the offensive line not playing well. And as the season goes on and they don't play one of the best run defenses in the league, I do think the run game will continue to get better. But I think by far the biggest surprise regarding this Jets team was their defense. I mean, heading into this year was supposed to be like a top 3 unit, and I kind of understand that thinking because the last 2 years, the Jets defense has been really, really good. They might have the best trio of cornerbacks with Sauce Gardner and DJ Reed and Michael Carter. The linebacking core with Quincy Williams and CJ Mosley is really, really good. But my biggest concern is the defensive line. And after that game, I think they needed to call Hassan Reddick this morning or even last night on the flight home and said, Hassan, we need you in the building. What is it going to take? Can we just give you $5 extra million this year? And will you come play for us? Because we desperately need some help on the defensive line. The 49ers do not have an elite offensive line. They have Trent Williams, and he's really their only marquee player. I mean, he's going to be a future Hall of Famer. He definitely helps out. But outside of that, they don't really have many other high-end players. You know, their right guard, their rookie, and Dominic Puny looked pretty good. But the Jets were getting blown off the ball, and it really looked like Swiss cheese out there outside of Quinnen Williams, who was really the only player to consistently get some pressure or even make some run stops. And that was even without Christian McCaffrey, who was seen as the best running back in the league, not even playing. It was the backup Jordan Mason, who did look good. I do think he's going to be a fairly good running back as long as McCaffrey is on the sideline. But again, it's not McCaffrey. It's not one of these guys that are seen as like an elite running back. And for him to rush for 147 yards, average 5.3 yards per carry, and have a touchdown, I mean, that was pretty embarrassing for the Jets defensive line. And going back to the pass rush, I think Purdy was only pressured like 2 or 3 times the entire game. And the Jets are really relying on 2 former first-round picks in Jermaine Johnson and Will McDonald. And both of those guys really haven't proven themselves to be worthy of that first-round pick quite yet. And then just a bunch of other replacement level veterans like Michael Clemens and Tarkaris McKinley. And how this defensive line has gotten really thin is because they got rid of Bryce Huff. He went to the Philadelphia Eagles. He was their leading pass rusher last year. They had to trade away John Franklin Myers, who was a great rotational piece for them as well in the defensive line last year, because they went all in to acquire Hassan Reddick. And I do understand wanting to go out and get a premier pass rusher because he was seen as an upgrade over Bryce Huff because he can play against the run as well. But we've seen how that trade has worked out so far. I mean, he hasn't even been in the building yet, regardless of even practicing or playing the game. I mean, he hasn't even stepped foot in the Jets practice facility. But those were some of the biggest takeaways I had about the Jets in the first game. I'm not going to overreact to it. I mean, they were playing one of the best teams in the league on the road with a lot to prove with all of their offseason drama. Rodgers in his first game in over a year. I do think the offense is going to continue to get better as he continues to really get that rust off. I still think the Jets are going to be in the hunt for the playoffs. I still think they have a lot of talent across their team, and the schedule the next several weeks is not too hard either. So I do think the Jets can kind of rebound from this, get under their feet a little bit, and then really take off as the season progresses. I mean, their next 4 games are against the Titans, the Patriots, the Broncos, and the Vikings. I think they're probably going to be favored in at least 3 or 4 of those. So the Jets do have some time to iron out these mistakes, but I do think if they want to be a serious contender this year, they have to figure out the defensive line. They cannot just get ran all over by a physical team every single week. And offensively, they just have to find their identity and a little bit more creativity as well, because Rodgers, he's not going to be as mobile as he used to be. Nathaniel Hackett needs to find a way to make this offense not so one-dimensional and reliant on 2 players. But I want to know what you think about the New York Jets and what you expect from them the rest of the season. Are you a little bit worried now after their loss to the 49ers, or do you still have some hope that they can turn it around and be a true contender in the AFC? Let me know what you think in the comment section down below. But subscribe to the channel if you are new. Drop a like on the video if you did enjoy it. And as always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you guys in my next one.